And we are live. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Amaury. I'm the proud CEO of Stakha, and I'm super excited, really, like to host that first webinar for Stakha. I'm not alone. I also want to thank Leah from Waldo and also Malai. And today we're gonna speak about how remote work promotes diversity and inclusion. So before we jump on the subject, why don't you, Leah and Malay, introduce yourself?
Malai, do you want to go first?
Sure, why not? My name is Malai. I'm from the Netherlands. I've been head of people for over, well, about 10 years now. And over the past 10 years, I've been working for remote first companies. And so I'm really happy that it is on the top three, let's say, from a lot of companies worldwide now. So I'm looking forward to this webinar.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm Leah. I'm French, but living in New York. I'm working for a tech startup named Waldo, and I joined them about a year and a half ago. So we're working in tech, and I was solo in my department for a long time. So I would say that my main mission is tech talent acquisition. I'm hiring in France and in the US. But I've done a lot of stuff on the people side too, since I was alone in my department, like donc employer branding, talent attraction, talent acquisition, and people too.
Okay,
And I'm
cool,
excited
perfect.
to be there.
Great, thanks. So just one small stuff before we started. If you have any question whatsoever during the presentation, just type them on the right. We won't be able to see them right away, but if we forgot about one remark on another question, we will review at the end of the talk. Before we jump, Leah and Malay, I just really wanted to share two super interesting facts. First one will be about Zillow, which is a US tech company. They figured out that when they switched from on-site roles to fully remote roles, they had much more women as applicants. And the second interesting fact is it was from Slack. They figured out that they've been hiring much more minorities people on those fully remote position than on the one on site. So you know that Stakha is a remote first company. It's my passion and everything. So I know kind of stuff about that. So I have one idea about why, women and minorities are more interested in remote work. But Leah Malay, why, in your opinion, because we are here like to hear about you, to hear about your personal experience, what you've been doing, what you're doing currently at your company, in your opinion, why do you think that women and minorities are more interested in remote work? Oh, Malay, I
Malai?
think I think we have an issue with your mic. Yeah, that's quite interesting. Thanks for showing something different.
Well,
Definitely,
yeah,
it's the future.
we can hear like a robot, Malai. I don't know what's happening. Uh, but if you want, I can maybe start while you fix
Yeah,
it. Um, I would say that on how we can, for example, let's speak about the women first, on how we can reduce the gender gap. If we think about most heterosexual couples who still function in a quite, I would say, old school way, where mommy does everything, mommy drops the kids at school or at childcare in the morning, mommy preps lunch, mommy gets the kids back to school, then mommy does the laundry, and mommy cooks dinner, and if one of the kid is sick, mommy will end her day to make sure that she can take care of the kids. So usually it's always the woman who can who puts her career on the side for her family, in most heterosexual couples still today, unfortunately. So if we think, for example, that these women don't have to commute anymore to go to an office, etc. If we do the math, this is something I've done a few months ago, and I think it's actually quite striking. If you do the math, if you commute 2 hours per day, on all working days during a year, it means that you actually spend 20 entire days in your car per
Okay.
year. So, imagine just getting back just these days, and it can be, fine for men too, obviously, but we're speaking about women now. Imagine the time that they can now get for their career, for, self-care, for their mental health, for their family. So I think it can be a very, very good thing for women first. I don't know if Malai, your mic is fixed.
No,
No,
we don't hear you.
now.
Okay, and so you mentioning that. Sorry, Malay. We'll try. We focus on you one sec. Could you just try again? Maybe if you switch off and switch on your mic, because it was working fine before. So, and now, could you try?
No.
No, sorry. I think we will just continue a little bit with Leah Malay. I think the best is like you disconnect and then you come back on the talk. Perfect. So, Leah, you were telling that if women were more interested in the in remote work, it's just like they just have if it's what I understood, they have more time to do the other tasks they want to do, and so they don't feel so much in a rush. And so by by finding a remote position, they could pick up the kids or what they could be like doing what they would like to do at home.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we're speaking about women, but
Hmm.
it's also a very good thing. For example, again, in a heterosexual couple, if a father now works remotely, he can take on way more responsibility. And so, things can be way more balanced in a couple, etc., which can be a very good thing regardless of any gender. And I've read a bunch of studies that I might mention a bit later, but we can see that women are really asking for more, at least hybrid work, or at the bare minimum hybrid work, or being remote. So this is really something that employers need to listen now. Um, and yeah, I guess that's my first take on it.
Okay. Let's try again with Malay.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yay!
Woo! Perfect.
Sorry, I'm so far away from you guys. Okay.
So just like Leah just mentioned that in her point of view, why women were more interested in fully remote work is that they're gonna save a lot of time on on the community project, the fact to go to the office and everything, that they will have more time for the personal life. What do you think? What's
Mhm.
your opinion on that?
Yeah, so I think I totally agree on that part. Another thing is that mostly women are more hesitant to take bigger steps, for example. So if they see a job that they might not suit 100%, they're more likely to say, I might not apply for it. So maybe there's a barrier that's less or smaller to overcome. So I think that's the part with women, and my experience with minorities is that they can present themselves in a different way, fully remote, compared to if they have to go live somewhere. They have less chance a lot of times. At least my experience in the US was that we had a lot of minorities applying for our fully remote job. And I felt that, well, they were suffering from a lot of discrimination. And so they felt that there were more opportunities with being fully remote in applying, but also not being in an office where they have to endure the discrimination. So I think there are just different ways of approaching it, and also, yeah, things that those bigger topics are also still in place in a lot of countries.
Okay, so you mean that the women and minorities are more comfortable working fully remote because they can really be themselves. They don't need like to fit in, in the company culture. They don't need like, to laugh at the boss jokes and everything. They're just more open and more comfortable to be really who they are.
Yeah, well, maybe I think the fitting in the culture is also part of it, but it's mostly about that, if they do their job right, then that's a big part of how they are being approached, instead of if you're too small or too big or too skinny or too fat or anything that really doesn't have to do anything with your quality of an employee or as a person, kind of being taken away. And you can present yourself with the qualities that you want in a different way than if you have to go to the office, sitting in a room, and especially with people who are more introvert, they're more comfortable as well having one-on-one conversations or choosing who to connect to instead of being in an open office with 50 other people. I think that's also parts of it that make it easier for people to interact remotely.
Yeah, I get it. Like, also one thing that was not I was not really comfortable when I was working on site. It was just like, it, all the attention were, on the people that was the loudest of the office. So if you're a little bit shy, we spoke about women and minorities, of course, but if you don't really fit, where you are, it's also harder to find your place. And so I had a feeling that also remote work is a way like to be more comfortable. So you will just be better at your work, and so that will also allow you, in my point of view, to grow also better in your career. Leah, Malay, do you have like any personal experience about someone, either a woman, either someone from the minority, that struggle a little bit on on-site roles, and thanks to remote could really, really grow?
Yeah, we have a colleague. She has, well, different backgrounds. She's really an introvert as well. And so she suffered quite a lot of discrimination. She worked at a corporate company where there's really a traditional way of looking at, well, a lot of things. So being a woman made her lesser than a male colleague. Being from Brazil made her a minority and kind of like didn't have the same rights. She was super introvert, so the first couple of months I had a hard time having a proper conversation with her rather than a question and an answer. And being at home, being at the comfort at her own home as well, made her flourish slow. But in the end, she was like full part of the team. She was a completely different person. And that is not only good for her as an employee, but it was also good for her as a person because she became more confident about her taking certain steps. First, really small, like baby steps, and then later on bigger steps. And she was really taking on different qualities that she was doubting if she even had them. So I think maybe not so much about being the minority, but just being different and having the comfort of your home to really excel in things that you do have. I really like to see that.
Cool. Super, super interesting. Um, I've seen like more and more companies right now that are trying to bring their workforce back to the office. So it's true that thanks to COVID, there were a really, really fast switch from working on site to working from home. What do you think? What do you think? You think that in few years we will go back working on site, or it's just like we will stay the way we are at the moment?
I'd say from my experience as a recruiter right now, I can really see a shift. Like when I started to work for Waldo a year and a half ago, a lot of people were just craving for remote, remote only, remote only. Now more and more, I can hear that some people are willing to have more kind of a hybrid model. I feel this is really the future of work. Um, and I strongly believe that remote is not for everyone. It's an amazing thing. I love being remote, but it's not for everyone. And I'm sure that employers, will have in office, will have hybrid models, will have remote, so everybody can find the perfect job, in the best way, where they can really blossom.
Yeah, I have the same feeling, although I do think that a lot of companies say that they have a hybrid model, but they do have a certain, they still force people to get into the office at least 3 days a week. So I don't know how much hybrid that really is.
Yeah.
So I think with the newer companies, the more the startups, the scale-ups, they have a new way of thinking anyway. So they probably already had the hybrid or fully remote policy. I think the big challenge is with the big old-fashioned companies, the corporates that really would like to have the middle management stay where they are and kind of keep the things as they were. So I really hope that hybrid and fully remote becomes bigger and is here to stay. But I think there's still quite a lot of work to do.
Yeah, there is, and it's true. I totally agree with you, Leah, with the fact that remote is not for everyone, and we know that at Stakha pretty well. That's why we are really picky with the candidates and also with the clients that we are helping to hire. Because when a client say, "Yeah, I mean, we want someone remote, but if he can live not so far from the headquarters, that won't be too bad." Yeah, but what do you expect? Oh, that you just come to the office from time to time, and then after all, you figure out that they want someone close to the office. And I'm not really comfortable. I do understand that you think that is the hybrid, is that's kind of the future, but then you will at the same time a little bit break all the added value of of remote work. Like thanks to remote work, you can have like disabled people coming to the office. You can have like you can build really multicultural teams. You can hire like you do that at Waldo, but you can hire in various countries and everything. So if you tend to build like a hybrid organization, then you will take a little bit is my again is my point of view, but do a little bit the worst of the two. You will have like to find the proper management to handle people that are
Yeah,
sometime
that's
on site, sometime working from home.
I don't think it's the worst of the two, to be honest. I think it's really it's up to leadership teams, up to employers to make sure that we build a culture that is very inclusive for both hybrid model and remote work. And yes, we have a lot to do for sure. And I think all employers are quite navigating the post-pandemic thingy right now. We're all trying to do our best, but yeah, lots of room of improvement for all employers today for sure.
One thing that was figured out is that when I take the example of the loud people in the office, Leah, Malay, how do you make sure that I mean, your peers working from home all communicate? Because, if you're shy, if you tend to be shy, you're working from home, sometimes you won't take the chance, to speak or whatever. How do you make sure that, that you get everyone talking about a specific topic?
I think for from my experience, it's really important to have the one-on-one conversation. Make sure that you interact with everyone on a regular base. So depending on if you see people in the office on a regular base, or if you have like a fully remote workforce, make sure that you interact with people. So either yourself or team leads or managers or whoever, make sure that people are seen, even if they are super shy or not comfortable speaking in groups. And because everyone has a voice, some people just don't like to speak up in groups, but make sure that they find their way to speak up through other people then in that case. And if you know that people are not comfortable speaking in public, don't force them. If you have like a team meeting with 50 people in Zoom, don't say, okay, Sully, I know you don't like to speak up, but what do you have to say about it? So those are the things you have to find a way and speak to them like you would in the office. Like if you have great ideas, but I really would like you to share your thoughts and ideas with the team, but I know you're not comfortable. So how would that work for you? Would it be a good idea to do this, that, or that? So they are also invited to step up in whatever kind of way that works for them.
Yeah, I strongly agree with that, with the one-on-one thing. What we have at Waldo, for example, is that each week, transparency is very key here. So each week, each department has to submit a very small report on, our successes, our failures, etc. This is something we share internally, but also to our investors. And then we really have the opportunity to challenge it. So what we do for people who can be a bit more shy is that first they can ask, questions on Slack,
Mhm.
either to their manager or on one of the challenge. We are all there. And then when we are in the all hands, it's a bit easier because the question has already been asked. So then someone else can say, hey, okay, I'm going to read the questions that were written. So not everyone has to speak, etc. And then I strongly agree with you again, Malai, regarding the 101. This is something that we should definitely keep. I know that a lot of remote companies are trying to remove a lot of meetings, etc., etc. And I think we should keep the important ones for sure, even if we're trying to work asynchronously. And important ones are for sure the 101s.
Cool.
Yeah, what I miss with working fully remote is that people take off the meetings, but they forget that you also have the coffee breaks and you have the coffee meetings, and you walk from one part of the office to the other part, and then, oh, by the way, and you speak to four peoples when you get from A to B. Those moments really count. That's how you interact with each other, and so calculate that time as well to interact with your people. Even if it's just like, oh, let's hop on a call for just 3 minutes. At least I've spoken to you on a regular basis. I think that's something that is being seen as inefficient, but it's super important to keep those low communications ongoing.
Cool. As we just to get back a little bit to the main topic, like we know that remote helps to hire minorities and women. If you are a company and you really want to build a more diversified workforce, what's gonna be like your first advice to a HR, to a VP of people saying, okay, no, we need to build more diversified workforce. We hire people fully remote. So what gonna be the next step in your opinion?
Malai, do you want to start? Or
Um, no, maybe you want to take this one first.
um, I'd say so. My first take would be one, fully remote is one very good thing. Then flexible hours. I'm sure we're going to speak about that a bit later. Something I do, for example, to make sure to um, give more chance to minorities, to underprivileged groups, etc., is that every time I open a new role at Waldo, I spend probably the first 10 days up to 2 weeks only reaching out to minorities. So it can be women, people of color, etc. And I think it just gives a bit more opportunity for these people first, to get in the hiring process. So that's one of the first things we're putting in place at Waldo. But I'm really sure that being remote plus having flexible hours is where the magic happens.
I think it's also very important to realize that location, it should actually be seen from the talent that you have. And especially, in Europe, it's super easy to work everywhere within Europe. So if you have people working, I don't know, in Poland, especially like the Netherlands has a huge issue with getting the right workforce in. So if you have people from different countries or from areas that are a little underdeveloped, but they have very talented people, then if you keep the people in their area, they have the economical benefits. They can stay with their family, and you as an employer, you can gain from the talent that you have, even if they're not in your own country. So I think it really should be seen separate from each other. And yeah, if you need to have people come to the office on a regular basis, then that's the calculation that you have to make as well. It's important to have people come over on a regular basis as well. So it could be once a year, it could be twice a year. You save a lot of money on relocation, commuting, expenses and stuff. So if you have people come to the office once a year to the headquarters and spend time there, okay, it will be quite a bunch of money, but I think overall you save quite a lot of money, and you have all the quality people that you need as well. I think there's just a different approach that we need to start dealing with as well.
Okay, so it's true that that is companies then needs to be really ready to say, okay, we are ready. We want to have like we want that talent, for example, is not located in Netherlands, but so it means that the company needs also to organize themselves to make sure that the onboarding will fit well, that everything will be definitely done fully remote. For a company that never hires someone out of the country, I mean, I'm pretty sure that you had to do it at some point, Malay.
Mhm.
What will be like your suggestion?
There are a lot of how you call them, like a contractor. So like for example, a company called Remote, they help you organizing all the paperwork so you don't have to open an entity somewhere else. So we hired people outside the Netherlands because we couldn't find them in the Netherlands, and then we used one of those companies to make sure that legally everything's being taken care of and work according to. We have someone in Germany, we have someone in Spain, we have people in the US. So you work according the laws and the regulations in that specific country. And so there are quite a lot of companies who jump into this new way of working, and they're super helpful because it doesn't make any sense if you have two people in France to open an entity there, or in Belgium or wherever. So um, it only makes it easier nowadays because there's so many companies who can help out with those kind of things. So it's actually super easy.
Cool, great. And you, Leah, could you tell me, Waldo, you're hiring in several spots I mean, in the world, huh? You hire everywhere in the US and also in some countries or only in France
So
for
I'd say
Europe?
that in tech, we mainly hire in France, but then we
Okay,
have also one sales guy in Austria. I'd say that for now, I mainly recruit in the US and in France. One to get the best talents.
okay.
Imagine having like two countries for you. It's just amazing just for sourcing. I know that in France also we have very very good engineers. I'm not saying that the Americans one are not good, but in France we have very very good schools. We have a very very good network of engineers, and thanks to Stakha also, I'm able to hire a lot of very talented people in France. So obviously, one for having access to a massive pool of talent. Um, then let's face it, as an employer, then there is always one engineer working at Waldo. We're following the sun, whether it's in the US on the West Coast. If we have someone in SF and someone in Paris, we have a 9 hours difference. So for our customers, etc., we always have someone on call, etc. So obviously it's perfect for our business also. And I guess again, to come back to our subject, it allows to have way more diversity in terms of culture. Again, right now we're hiring in France and in the US, so we could see that it's quite similar. But trust me, there is kind of a cultural shock still,
Okay.
and the more we'll grow, the more we'll open to Europe for sure.
Yeah, okay. That's something that I never really thought about. The fact that, yeah, hiring people everywhere in the world is nice because at least you're building a really quickly international team that's gonna also better understand a different culture from different part of the world. But also you can have like if your tech team is always awake, it means that if there is a bug, there is always someone that's gonna be working on it. That's pretty nice. I never thought about that. Another thing that I guess that when you have like someone in Australia, someone I mean, people in Europe, other people in the US, that the fact of working on flexible hours is super important, no?
For sure. This is a big, big part of Waldo. I know that this is really something extremely important for either parents, for either people with disabilities, people coming back, women coming back from childbirth, etc., maternity leave. This is a big, big part of blossoming at work. For example, I know it usually makes laugh a lot of my candidates, but I'm not an early bird. Right now it's 8:30 a.m. In New York. Usually I'm kind of still in my bed, and it's really for me. In the morning I'm not functioning the best way, but I'm super creative at night, so I love to work sometimes at night, but this is my personal preference. Then our parents at Waldo need to end their day at 5 p.m., whether they're in the US, whether they're in France, and that's totally fine for us. We really focus on delivery outcomes rather than the old school way of being in an office from 9 to 5 in front of your computer.
In your past experience, Malay, did you also had to organize flexible hours for your team?
Yeah, so not my last, but the previous company, we were offering. We had a yoga studio, so we had different ones, and we were open from 6:30 till 11 o'clock in the evening. So there were a lot of moving around, and so a lot of teams needed to be available at different times. And I think, I mean, I always wondered why we have to be in the office between a certain time. I mean, I'm not an early bird either. I thrive much better between 10:30 and 9, for example, than to ask me to do something at 8 because I will just be staring at my screen. So I think for a lot of people, having this flexibility not more than ever is just perfect. Some people like to work 4 hours straight, and they bring out the best in them rather than to spread it over 8 hours. With me, when I was running the studios, it was great because people who really wanted to work early in the morning because they have different things to do later that day, they really wanted to start working at 6:30 so they could finish at 3. And other people, they couldn't even think about getting up at 6, and they really wanted to have the 4 or the 3 p.m. shift and work till 11. So yeah, just see whatever works for people. And I'm happy that the whole flexibility is more of a common thing nowadays because it just doesn't work. It's a silly thing to think that people have the best outcome between a certain time. It's never been a natural thing. So I'm happy that it's being debated nowadays.
Yeah, and also I guess that we're jumping back to what Leah said, that the fact that remote work will attract more women applicants is also the fact that it's giving you that flexible hours, so you have also more chance to organize your personal life the way it is. And as Taka, we have like some great experience of uh, employee that just before couldn't do anything they wanted. I mean, they could do it, but just less. And when they joined Stakha, they could, as they were working fully remote, they do know a lot of sport, they do much more activities, they do much more things. Also, the weekend could be also a little bit longer if you go to a city. Let's say you go to Amsterdam, you can enjoy, one day or two in the city meanwhile you work. So yeah, it's true that part is the nice part also for the employee. Definitely, we've been also talking about the fact that it could be an added value for the companies regarding the diversity, regarding the follow the sun. Do you feel like other things also, if you have to think about other things that could be an added value for the company when they start to hire fully remote team, what it could be, what are the other things that could be interesting for companies?
As a value, you mean, or?
But so we spoke about the follow the sun thing. That was really interesting, definitely. And I was thinking, what are the other things that could be great for companies when it comes to why they should hire more people fully remote?
Um, I think that learning from each other is a big plus. It seems that it doesn't have anything to do with your workforce, but it really creates a certain culture, especially if you have different departments, to really make sure that people will learn from each other instead of like, okay, you have department A, B, and C, and they operate in different silos. Really make sure that founders create a culture, but then the employees have to make it and bring it alive. And so the more you can learn from each other, the stronger the culture will be. So, and then I think it doesn't really matter if you are fully remote or if you are hybrid or office first. Um, Having a very, how you call it in English, homogeneous, like everyone's the same, everyone is the same color, everyone has the same background, makes it very colorless. If you have a lot of colors in your in different ways, if you have a lot of color, a lot of diversity in your company, you have much more understanding not just about each other, but definitely also about the world and the things that you do within the company. So I think there's a lot of motivation to do more than just your work only. I think it supports quite a lot of things. So I think that would be a strong value for every company to push forward more.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you can attract way more diverse talents for sure. I know that I had a McKinsey study that I wanted to share with you, and I can share the link with whoever wants it after. But I know that in 2021, McKinsey did a studies where they showed that employees from underprivileged backgrounds were more likely than their more privileged counterparts to say that they would leave a company if it didn't offer at least hybrid work. And so that includes 14% more Black employees than white employees, 24% more LGBTQ employees than heterosexual employees, 10% more female employees than male employees, and 14% more employees with disabilities than people without. And I think it just like, sums up a little bit what we said during the chat. We can, it doesn't reduce the chances for the white male, somewhere in the world, but it just opens to so many diverse candidates now, where while being remote, you can now hire. Let's say, for example, with people on the autistic spectrum, for example, it's a neurological disorder. Some people are impacted by a certain type of stuff, some people are not. This kind of stuff can be, a certain type of lighting, a certain type of colors that trigger them, loud noises. We mentioned that earlier also in the office. So if we can allow these people to work from home, they can actually be amazing performers. So yes, it's good for the world, but let's face it, it's also very good for employers, because the more diverse the workplace is, the more the more powerful the company can be.
Yeah, definitely. And I remember like I read not so long ago also an article from Forbes or something like that. They were saying that thanks to remote works, you had I don't know the numbers, but they were crazy. It was thousands of people that could get a job. They were most of them were disabled people that couldn't have a job before because, come on, taking the bus with a wheelchair, not everyone could afford a special car and everything. And that's also the thing that I really love about remote work. That is also giving like equal opportunities to a lot of people out there. It's just not only the people living like in big cities or whatever, because we also mostly speak about that balance between the personal life and the working life. But for a lot of people, it's not even is not a choice. They have to stay at home. They have to have the right setup to be productive. And at Stakha, we've been helping someone that had like really sensitive ears, and for that person, just walking in an open space, it was just killing him for 2 weeks. And it's true that a lot of companies, even clients of Stack, I didn't really understood, but why he cannot come at least one day, for the interview? And we had to explain, no, because if he's come one day, the poor guy won't be able to walk for 2 weeks. And that's the thing also, that now we can see that more and more companies are open to that and saying, okay, so is nice because we're building more diverse team in terms of women, in terms of minorities, but also we're giving much more chance, professional chance, to a lot of people that we tend to forget for years and years.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a colleague who was breastfeeding her children, so that's very difficult if you have to go to the office and have to commute 4 hours a day. And if you can do it in between, then and you can have a full-time job as well. She was an outstanding colleague and employee. So yeah, if she wants to work remote for that specific reason, be my guest. I mean, it worked out really well, and yeah, I think also for the disabilities, definitely if you have physical disabilities or mental disabilities, having the comfort of your home, not commuting saves a lot of trouble. But also if you have any caretaking role that
Yeah.
really needs your flexibility, so it could be a child, but could also someone from your family that needs any whatever kind of care, you need to be present, you need to be in the area. And like the Netherlands is pretty small, so sometimes you can, find a job within 5 or 10 minute bike ride. But if you look at like France or America, those countries are so much bigger, and commuting for at least 2, 3 hours is pretty normal. That really allows you, doesn't allow you to combine those things. Well, if you are able to work fully remote or at least hybrid, then you can do both and be outstanding in both of them as well. Sorry,
Yeah.
just wanted to share that.
No, no, it's wonderful, and it's true that Yeah, Netherlands. It's I mean, yeah, indeed, it's smaller country like Belgium, but it's true that if you take an example like like France or US, you have like parts that are super remote, like in France, what we call la Creuse. So it's really super remote. So how do you give people there the chance to work? Only they say, no, sorry, if you want to have an interesting job, you have to leave your family, you have to leave your friends, you have to leave everything. But come on, it's gonna be funny working in the big cities. Yeah, not really. So yeah, I totally agree also on that. That we it's just like we in the minorities often we tend to see, yeah, it's for colorful, it's just for color people of color and everything. But no, it's not only about that. It's also the people that don't have the same chance as living in a rich city where it's easy for them to get a job. Yeah.
And not
Absolutely.
everybody wants to live in Paris, in New York, or I don't know where you live, Malai, but a lot of people really enjoy the countryside, and that's where they
I
blossom.
lived in Amsterdam. I moved away from
Okay, so
Amsterdam actually
Amsterdam is
because I
also a
was
big
kind of like
city.
done with the city. Well, when
But
we
yeah,
were recruiting in the US, a lot of people came from New York and they moved out because they were having like a young family or they had other
yeah.
reasons. And for them, having the quality of their lives in more remote areas and having the opportunity to work fully remote, that made a perfect combination for them.
Yeah.
And also with the cost, living in New York is slightly different than if you live in a suburb in a different state. So yeah, it just had a lot of combinations, a lot of factors that made it better for them. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's right. And one thing that I like also to see, I mean, Stakha is there for 2 years, and we see also like how client companies tend to be more and more open about that is about salary. The fact that before they were saying no, but if we're gonna hire that person on a fully remote basis, it's normal that you take a cut off of 30%. Yeah, and now they understood that no, it cannot work like that because other companies will value the work at 100%.
Yep.
And so, yeah, do you have like any example of of companies of candidate that was like mostly candidates that couldn't have like a fully remote job because the potential employer were giving a lower salary? I don't know if you have any experience in that or
So
not at
like,
all.
if someone rejected an offer
Yeah,
because they couldn't be remote,
yeah, yeah.
uh, so I guess we're offering remote at Waldo, so I don't have a, I cannot say anything here. But Malai, do you have something?
I don't have very strong examples, but at Headroom we offered remote first and fully remote. So I know that a lot of people came to us because we were able to offer that, and if they applied at other jobs, they had to be in the office 3, 4 days a week, or they had to be there very like fixed moments. So I know that there's still quite a lot of companies who do demand that or wish that. I have a colleague, she works at Dyson, and so the headquarters is based in the UK. And during COVID, when at least the government allowed it, people had to come to the office with a mask on all day long, not because they had to work in the factories, but because they had to be in the office because they could be seen behind their screen. I think that's so ridiculous. That if there's no reason for people to commute 2, 3 hours a day and do their job in a proper way, then why would you force them to get in the office? And especially everyone had to be in the office at the same time. So you have like 4,000 people in an office during a pandemic. I think that's a bit silly.
Yeah. So Dyson, I mean, we shouldn't like bashing companies, but
Oh,
so
yeah.
Dyson was
Sorry.
paying 5,000. That's quite interesting. Yeah, come on. Yeah, there is no pandemic. Just come to work.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I know more companies that said, well, we want people to get in the office and either larger groups. So yeah, definitely, and I think especially the bigger companies, so not so much
Mhm.
the startups with 50 employees or the startups up to 200, but really the old-fashioned. Like at Headroom, we offer AI as a service, so a lot of secretaries or people who with an assistant position, they should come to the office, and sometimes they sit alone in the office, but they had to be. to be in the office because that's the way we work. Well, the rest of the
Mhm.
company was all sitting at home, working at home. The secretary or the receptionist had to be in the office just to kind of fill a place. Um, yeah, I think there's still
Yeah.
quite a lot of work to do for a lot of
Okay.
companies.
Definitely. We're about to arrive at those 45 minutes. So, Leah, Malay, you would like to say anything before we say goodbye to everyone?
Yeah.
No? Okay, perfect. Thanks everyone for joining us today. We really, it was a great moment. Thanks also to Leah and Malay, of course, to be sharing so much thing, so much cool thing also that will help companies to hire fully remote. And I'm really looking forward like to organize another chat really soon. Bye
Awesome.
everyone.
All right.
Thank you
Thanks
so
a
much
lot
for
for
having
having
us.
us. Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.